Such an event would be producing huge waves that would make the waves today look like ripples in a pond.
Only at the beginning of the Noachian flood. Once the tidal waves had passed, the seas would have eased because of wave harmonics and the low-frequency continual earthquake experienced by the entire Earth. The ark stayed on the ground until the seas lifted it from the Earth.
NephilimFree, I gotta hand it to you. There's one thing you're good at on Earth, and that's just making shit up. Anyways, just like everyone else who just makes shit up whenever they need to, it just ends up making the situation worse. Because now you have the ark sitting on the ground waiting for the floodwaters, while earthquakes on epic proportions are going on right underneath the ark. Even today's earthquakes can rip apart steel, concrete, and rock, and you want us to believe that a wooden ark would survive forces that are far beyond these, and far beyond even what our imaginations can really take in, let alone the people and animals that are on the ark that would be experiencing these forces that would be far beyond what the body could take? Yeah, right. If anything, you just made the problem worse for Noah, because now he's dead before the floodwaters ever got to him. Way to go, Nephilim!
It took quite some time for that to happen. The tidal waves would have long been gone. Furthermore, even though the tidal waves would have already abated, it is likely that the ark was built quite some distance inland, where the tidal waves wouldn't affect it even if there still were tidal waves, before it lifted from the Earth.
Yeah, right. We got earthquakes going off. We have volcanoes erupting all throughout the Earth, putting out massive amounts of energy and shock waves for years even afterwards. And we have air pressure increase, and we have water pressure increase. We have all these different factors going on, and you want us to believe, oh, the waves would just subside. Yeah, you better produce some great piece of evidence for that claim, especially seeing that land is one of the factors that actually helps break up waves. So once the land is gone, these waves are going to get huge. So good luck on producing this evidence. Even today, surviving in a large storm in our strongest and most advanced and most largest ships that we have today is no easy task. The only defense is to turn a ship into the wave itself and adjust the speed accordingly. And even then, these huge ships that are made from our strongest metals that we have today could be horribly damaged and even sunk from these large waves that impact the ships.
The ship you just showed a picture of was called the Polycarp, later renamed as the Willstar. It was a poorly designed ship.
Poorly designed ship? If I had to choose between the Willstar and the Ark, I would choose the Willstar any day, seeing that the Ark is highly unlikely to even stay afloat in calm waters. And I'll get to that in a little bit in my video. Anyways, the Willstar photo was picked at random and was only meant to represent damage to a ship that ships take at sea, and was not to be compared to the waves that the Ark would be introduced to. Mainly because it's highly unlikely any ship that could ever be built, even with today's modern technology, could survive such a storm.
With a deck that was close to the sea. It was not designed for the open ocean. It was designed for the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. It was never designed to take on the largest waves out in the ocean.
And the Ark was?
Furthermore, it certainly did not have a 6-to-1 ratio of width to length, which was a great disadvantage, and is a great disadvantage to any ship encountering the worst seas. Typically, the outer planking of a ship like this is made from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch steel planks. And while that sounds very durable, such planking will not give very easily when a stress is applied.
Oh, really now? It won't give very easily. Okay. Well, we'll get to this in just a moment. Let's keep going.
The hull of the Ark, however, was far thicker. Its outer planking was several layers thick, possibly several feet thick. In truth, the Ark was far more durable than any ocean-going vessel made today. Its support beams would have been made from the center portion of very large trees. Here's a little video clip of some guys fooling around with a little stick of wood in an office. They applied 570 pounds to it, and it didn't break. Now bear in mind, this is just a little stick of wood. Noah's Ark would have had support beams so large you couldn't put your arms around them, and there would have been thousands of them.
Before I get to this, I gotta ask, where do you get your info of how thick Noah's Ark's hull is? Because you can't find it in the Bible, so is this not just pulling shit out of your ass again? Anyways, let's go back a little bit when you said this.
is made from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch steel planks. And while that sounds very durable, such planking will not give very easily when a stress is applied.
Now, if for some odd reason what he's saying is true, then we should be using wood to build skyscrapers instead of steel. Anyways, let's compare steel to wood. Now let's first start by looking at wood and its shear strength. Wood's shear strength is about 100 to 300 psi. Now if we compare this to steel, its shear strength is about 36,000 to 50,000 psi. That's a pretty darn big difference here. Also, wood's elasticity ranges about 1 million to 2 million psi. Compare that again to steel. Its elasticity is 29 million psi. What does all this mean? It means that a steel ship can experience more stress from a storm and from the weight of the ship itself than the Ark can. You're going to need some extremely thick hulls on the Ark to equal that of a steel ship. So good luck on that. However, making the hulls thicker would probably be a bad idea, seeing that the Ark itself, without thick hulls, would already be under extreme amounts of stress, especially from something known as hogging. Adding the extra weight with thicker hulls would just make the effect worse. Now, have you ever wondered why most wooden ships never got very big? Well, at least wooden ships in the shape of the Ark, or modern ships anyways. Well, it's because of the effect known as hogging. Steel ships get as large as the Ark and even larger because of steel. Steel that lets the ship bend more and holds more of its shape. Wood, on the other hand, has a huge limits to it, and the larger the ship, the worse the hogging effect gets. A ship as large as the size of the Ark that had been made out of wood would fall apart even in calm seas because of this effect. Heck, even before it got this big, it would have fallen apart. The largest wooden ships today are reinforced with steel plates and rivets and have pumps to pump out all the water that's leaking in because of this hogging effect, and they don't even get as close to the size of the Ark. Here, let me read an article about hogging as to educate NephilimFree, and also why I do this, I'll play a video of what a steel ship goes through that the Ark would not be able to take. Until the 1920s, a large percentage of the world's shipping consisted of large wooden ships and their plague. After plain old rot was hog. A ship floating quietly in still water is subject to external force. These are the weight of the vessel on its cargo, downwards, and the buoyancy of the force, upwards. Archimedes showed us that for a floating vessel, these two forces must be in equal magnitude. For a floating rectangular piece of wood, they are also in equal distribution. For most normally shaped ships, this distribution is not equal. For example, when an empty ship has more weight, relatively heavy structure, engine, and so on, in the ends and more buoyancy in the middle, this excess buoyancy in the middle causes the middle to rise up and the ends to bend down. A hog-in profile, it's called. The opposite condition is sagging. For wooden ships, this resulted in a long-term plastic deformation. The total curvature could be more than a meter or so in larger vessels. Some vessels, like the Wapama, hog so much that they nearly broke in two. Hogging is no longer a problem it was in the 1920s when it threatened the nation's merchant fleet, because these ships have sunk. Wooden ships, even wooden warships like the USS Constitution, are actually quite weak even when new. Although solid shots may have ricocheted from their side, they are generally unable over time to resist the fairly small forces they are subject to anchored in still water. There is a false idea that amazingly still has some following, that wood ships were strong because they would flex. In fact, relative movement between structure members allows fresh water to enter the hull structure, carrying rot fungus spores deep inside. Anyways, this article goes on for some time, so I'll post a link over to the right and also encourage people to learn about this hogging effect when it comes to wood ships. Now, this effect is why the Ark itself, even reinforced with multiple plates and thicker plated hull and structure beams, would not be able to withstand even calm waters due to its size and weight. The Ark would break in two if it did not already break under its own weight before the flood. Basically, to sum this all up, small ships are affected by hogging in big ways, and even over time these small ships will succumb to this hogging effect, and the larger the ship, the more the effect will have. Eventually you reach a point where, due to the size of the ship will immediately succumb to these effects of the hogging. That is why even the most modern ship that we have today, made out of wood, must have the wood itself reinforced with steel and have powerful pumps to pump out water that leaks in through the wood. And even our most modern wood ships don't even come close to that of the Ark.